All right. So hopefully you've already gotten through 1 and probably 2. So we'll go through these fairly quickly. So you've got this assortment of positive and negative tiles over here. What energy does this represent? Let's see, there are 4 positives and 6 negatives, so it represents -2. If at any point you have a question that you'd like to ask me, I'd be happy to answer them. So what happens if 3 positive tiles are removed? So in symbols, what I would do is go, okay, I have these positive and negative tiles, and with symbols, what I would probably do is put all the positives together and all the negatives together. I can't stand them all mixed together like that. So there were 4 positives, and there were, what, 6 negatives? So if we remove 3 positive tiles, what's the resulting value now? What does this represent now? What is it? -5. So we started at -2, and we removed 3 positive tiles, so -3. That's equal to -5. What would happen if we remove 3 negative tiles? So let's do the same thing. So we've got 4 positives, 6 negatives. And we remove these 3 negative tiles. What's left? 1. So if I started with -2 and I removed, so minus 3 negatives, I end up at +1. So do you see how removing negatives makes your answer larger than it was? Right? Removing negatives makes your answer bigger. Removing positives makes your answer smaller. So let's go on to number 2. So in each part labeled A through C below, one representation is given. For each of these, create at least 2 of the other representations. So they gave you a diagram. So we want at least 2 of these 3, a numerical expression, and then describe it in words, and then the total value. All right, so what did we start with here? Well, we started with 8, 9, 10 positives minus with 2 negatives. So we started with a value of 8, right? And then we removed 2 negatives. And when we do that, we end up with, we've got the 8 negatives, and now we have 2 positives that aren't being zeroed out, right? So how many total do we have at this point? 10. So in words, we could say something like this: starting with a value of 8, removing 2 negatives, gives us a value of 10. All right. Any questions about that one at all? Okay, let's take a look at this. So I'm going to draw it first. Let's start with 8 negatives. Then we're going to take those 8 negatives and we're going to remove 3 negatives. So we started with -8 and we removed 3 negatives. So -8 minus 3 negatives gives us a value of what? -5. All right, and here they gave us to us as a story. It's cold. The first time I looked at the thermometer today, it said it was -3 degrees Fahrenheit. Then it dropped 5 more degrees. How cold is it now? So we started with -3. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky to draw. It says it dropped 5 degrees. Well, that means it didn't say it dropped -5 degrees, did it? No. So I need to have 5 positives that I can remove. But if I have those 5 positives, is this equal to -3 anymore? No. So I also need 5 negatives so that I can remove those 5 positives. Then we're going to take that and we're going to remove the 5 positives. So if we're at -3 minus 5, where does that land us? -8. All right, let's move on to the back. So we're not going to take the time to, it takes long enough to draw these, and we're eventually going to get away from drawing them. I'm not going to make you build all these with the little tile deals unless you really want to. Not really? Okay. So we're going to skip this. We're going to draw it, then we're going to record the expression and its result. So on this one, we're supposed to start with 7. That's 7 positives. And then we're going to remove 5 of them. So, God bless you. 7 minus 5 gives us what? 2. All right, And let's speed up the process a little bit more. Instead of saying start with and then having to redraw the whole thing, why don't we just combine it? Okay? So here it says we're starting with nothing and we're removing 4. Well, if I'm going to remove 4, I've got to have 4 positives, right? So how could I make this start at 0 then? What do I need? Yeah, I need 4 negatives. And once I remove those 4 positives, we have that 0 minus 4 is equal to negative 4. All right, that makes sense? Okay, I'd like you to do the next 4. I'll give you a little bit of time. Feel free to talk to anyone that you can talk to quietly without getting out of your desk. By the time we get to taking a quiz on that, you won't have to draw them. You can do it without it. I'm just trying to help you understand what's going on. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so you started with 6 negatives. Yeah. And then you want to subtract 2 positives.
No. What?
Also 2 negatives. Yeah. And then to show that, you circle those. So your answer is correct.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about the two in the pond.
Okay. You do 6 negatives. And then we're subtracting 2 positives. We're not subtracting 2 negatives. If we wanted to subtract negatives, it would look like this. We would subtract 4 negatives. This says subtract 2 positives. So do we have any positives in these to start with? So we've got to add 2 positives and 2 negatives so that it will change its value. And then we can subtract the 2 positives. Does that make sense? Negative 8? Don't be snotty about it. All right. Let's take a look at these, please. So for this first one, you're supposed to start with negative 6. You're supposed to start with negative 6, and then they want us to subtract 2 positives. Well, I don't have any positives to subtract. So in order to subtract the 2 positives, I need to add on 2 more negatives. So I get negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8. So I want you to listen to what I said really carefully again. In order to subtract the 2 positives, I need to add on 2 more negatives, right? Subtracting 2 positives requires that I add on 2 more negatives. All right, let's take a look at this one. I'm supposed to start with positive 3. And then I'm supposed to subtract 4 negatives. Well, in order to subtract 4 negatives, what else do I need to do? Add on 4 more positives. Subtracting 4 negatives means I needed to add on 4 positives. And this gives me 3 minus negative 4 is 7. Before we go on, let's talk about those. So, subtracting the 2 positives was the same thing as adding on 2 negatives. Here, subtracting 4 positives, I had to add on, subtracting 4 negatives, I had to add on 4 positives. Do you see how that works? Was that a no? Okay. All right, so here, if we start off with negative 8, if we're subtracting 5 negatives, do I need to do anything to this diagram? No, I can just subtract 5 negatives. So negative 8 minus negative 5 leaves me with negative 3. And then here, I'm supposed to start off with negative 1. and then subtract 9 negatives. Well, how many more negatives am I going to need to add on so that I can subtract that? I've got to add on another another 8 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But I also have to put in 8 positives so that the value is the same. So now I'm supposed to subtract 9 negatives. What am I left with? 8 positives. So I had to add on 8 more positives. This would be the same thing as -1 plus 9, which is 8. I could have added on 9 negatives and 9 positives, right? And that would have worked. All right, let's move on. Represent the distance between each pair of points below in 2 ways using the absolute value symbol. For example, the distance between 8 and 3 can be written as the absolute value of 8 minus 3, which is the absolute value of 5, which is equal to 5, as well as the absolute value of 3 minus 8, which is the absolute value of -5, which is also 5. So I could do the absolute value of -2 1/6 minus 1. The distance between a pair of points is always found by subtracting. So -2 1/6 minus 1, that's going to be -3 1/6. And the absolute value of that will be +3 1/6. If I switch it around, this is going to be 1 minus -2 1/6. If I'm subtracting negative numbers, it's the same thing as adding on the same value of positive numbers. So this is the absolute value of 1 plus 2 1/6. It's the absolute value of 3 1/6, which is 3 1/6. For this one, I can do 2.38 minus 7.49. So to find that value, I need to take 7.49 and subtract 2.38 because those are working against each other. This is the absolute value of -5.11. Oops. Not a parenthesis, absolute value. That's 5.11. The other way around is much easier to do, isn't it? Because you don't get a negative. We just subtract the larger number minus the smaller one. We've got the absolute value of 5.11, which is 5.11. All right, in the interest of time, we're going to skip over that next one. All right. So we're not actually going to do the tiles. We're going to just do this by drawing. Okay? So we're going to start with 5 plus tiles. So I want you to find 4 different ways that you could end up with positive 2. So what's the most obvious way? I'm starting off with 5 tiles. Hello. Yes. Yeah, subtract 3 of them. So that would give you just those 2. So it's 5 minus 3 is 2. Here's another way that you could do that. Start with 5. What if I added on 3 negative tiles? What's the value of that?
They would cancel each other. The 3 and the 3 would cancel each other out. So you get positive.
Right, so what's the value? 2. That would be start with 5 and add on a negative 3. Those 2 ways just have a single step, right? And those are kind of the main 2 I want you to get, but we could do it other ways. We could do it in 2 steps. What if we subtracted 2? And then we subtracted another 1. That would be 5 minus 2 minus 1. We could do combinations. We could start with 5. We could add on 2 negatives. That would leave us with 3. And then we could subtract a positive. So that'd be 5 plus negative 2 minus 1. But I want you to kind of focus on these. Do you see how those 2 are exactly the same thing? Subtracting 3 and adding negative 3 are the same thing. So now let's start with 10 negative tiles. I'm going to do 2 rows of 5 just so I don't have to have, 10 in a row. And we want to end up with negative 4. Well, how can we do that? What's the fastest way to end up with negative 4? Add 6? Okay. So if we added on 6 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that ends up at negative 4. So that would be negative 6. Negative 10 plus 6 is negative 4. What's another way that we could do that in one step? Yeah. Yeah, what if I took off 6 of the negatives? Negative 10 minus negative 6 also leaves you with negative 4. I'm not going to bother with the other 2 ways, but these are the 2 that I want you to see. If I'm subtracting negative tiles, it's the same thing as adding on that many positive tiles. If I'm subtracting positive tiles, that's the same thing as adding on that many negative tiles. Okay? We're going to use that idea quite a lot over the next few days. All right, let's quiz.